Hi everyone, welcome back. So, at this point in the class, we've talked a lot about different kinds of pathogens: bacterial, fungal, viral, parasites. We're going to talk more later about our immune response to these different pathogens. But for now, it suffices to say that after a successful battle with a pathogen, our immune system becomes educated to the identity of that pathogen and how to target and attack it to effectively get rid of it. This is what we call immunity. Now, our immune system remembers past infections so that it can repel subsequent infections of the same type. If we encounter the same strain of flu a second time after contracting it the first time, our body remembers what that strain looked like and can quickly mount a response. This is really beneficial because it can actually mean that we fight this stuff off way faster than we did the first time around, sometimes preventing us from ever realizing that we were sick in the first place. So, this is a really important thing to do. We want our immune system to be as educated as possible, particularly with some of these especially destructive and scary diseases. And battling those infections directly is not the only way to gain immunity to those diseases. There are other options. Obviously, the first one we're going to talk about here is the most straightforward one, the one that I just mentioned: getting sick. If you get sick and you survive, you gain immunity to that disease. That immunity usually comes about after about 10 days, where you get full antibody production and B cells that now remember the infection and what it looked like, what the recipe for those antibodies were. And so the next time you get infected with that same disease, you have those antibodies in your system and you have those cells that remember that infection. Of course, there are serious cons to this method. Like, if you could help it, it would be great not to have to get sick with a disease in order to gain immunity to it, because there's an inherent risk involved. Like, you could die, or if you don't die, you could become seriously injured. As in, this could have long-term after effects that survive long after you dealt with the disease. I mean, even today, in the wake of COVID-19, long COVID is still a thing, and some people really have taken serious, long-lasting injury that still plagues them many years out. It's also worth noting that while you're sick with this infection, you're contagious. You have the capacity to spread this disease to other people and give them this same fate. That sucks. Why would we want to do that to other people? This is particularly scary for infants who are born with very inexperienced immune systems. We certainly don't want to see them infected with these diseases. However, there are ways to acquire immunity passively without having to fight off a disease or deal with it in any direct way. Even from infancy, this is possible. And there's two main ways to go about that. The first one is breast milk consumption. So breastfeeding a baby can give them exposure to the antibodies that are in the breast milk. Yes, your body does actually produce antibodies that go into breast milk, and then those antibodies can be absorbed through your stomach and become part of their bloodstream. Now, that doesn't convey a long-lasting immunity. It will last as long as those antibodies last, which can be a while, but not lifelong, that's for sure. They will need to acquire real immunity later. You could also gain immunity indirectly through a blood transfusion from somebody that is immune to a disease. So your antibodies, when you produce them, cycle around in your bloodstream for years and years, and if you transfuse blood from somebody who has those antibodies into someone who does not have those antibodies, you can give them temporary protection for that particular disease. There's also an additional way to gain immunity indirectly through the population. This is herd immunity, when the immunity of other people in your population protect people who are not immune. In order for this to happen, you need to have a sizable percentage of the population that is immune to a particular disease. And that can be very challenging to acquire. This is a process that takes time and coordination and a lot of community public health investment. And the relative percentage of immune people in a population in order to acquire herd immunity is going to vary by disease and the specific features of that disease. For example, measles is a highly transmissible, highly infectious disease. It has an R naught that is quite high relative to other diseases. R naught is a value that measures for every new case of a disease, how many cases does that case create? How many new people are infected from one person that has that disease? And so for a disease like measles that has such a high R naught, such an ease of transmission, the relative percentage of the population that needs to be immune needs to be really high. I'm talking like higher than 90% of the population, which can be a real challenge. It's even more of a challenge because immune memory doesn't last forever. Not only are new people being born into the population who don't have immunity to start with, people who are immune may lose their immunity over time. Your immunity doesn't last your entire life. It can last a long time, but it isn't guaranteed to last your entire life. It's going to vary by what disease and how you encountered it. It's going to vary by that person's immune health and a bunch of other factors. Today, we can test this stuff by looking at our immune memory and response. We can look at our titers. We can do titer testing. This is when we check the quantity of specific antibodies for these different diseases in our blood. And if the number is too low, that's an indication that our immunity is waning. Ideally, it would be great to give immunity to other people without having to expose them to the disease itself. We could expose them to a weakened pathogen or one that is dead, something that triggers the immune system without inducing that illness. This concept is what we call artificial immunity. It's what's gained from exposure to particles or organisms that are associated with an infection that are dead or broken or weakened to the point where they couldn't harm you. And that gives us a training to our immune system and a recognition of what they should attack without ever having to get sick ourselves. So it's incredibly safe by comparison, remarkably safe. These artificial immunizations are a form of what we call prophylactic medicine. It's a preventative. It's when we try to do something to prevent a disease from forming. Just a general idea about what we're talking about here. Birth control pills are a prophylactic against pregnancy. Dental cleanings are a prophylactic against dental caries and other issues. Putting Neosporin on a wound is a prophylactic against getting an infection in that wound. Artificial immunizations are no different by comparison, just for different diseases. And so there's a lot of different examples out there, but ultimately their whole job is preventing severe symptoms and especially transmission of diseases to people who maybe can't get these artificial immunizations. Not everybody is able to get them. Some people have health conditions that prevent that. And those people, if we could prevent them from catching these diseases, well, that would be ideal as well, wouldn't it?